Australian tennis player Oleksandra Oliynykova has called for a total ban on Russian and Belarusian players at the Australian Open, labelling their presence as
She came, she fought, she fell. But what happened inside that court will change everything for Alex Eala at Roland Garros.
And then just globally, do you have a sense of, sorry, I'm not trying to give you an ego here, but like if you look at the numbers on YouTube for like the pre-tournament press conferences, how much people watch them?
Nobody saw it coming. A 20-year-old from the Philippines, fresh off the greatest Italian Open run of her young career, walks into the city of Strasbourg for what was supposed to be a tune-up match, a final sharpening of the blade before the real war begins in Paris. Instead, she walked into a firestorm. Nearly 3 hours of brutal, breathtaking, emotionally draining tennis. A war within a war. And when the dust finally settled on that red clay court on Monday evening, it was not the girl from Manila who was left standing. It was a warrior from Kyiv, a woman whose father flew in from the front lines of an actual armed conflict just to watch his daughter play. And if that does not send chills down your spine, nothing will. This is the story of what really happened when Alex Eala faced Oleksandra Oliynykova at the 2026 Strasbourg Open, and why every single detail of this match matters more than anyone is currently willing to admit, heading into Roland Garros. Buckle up, because this one goes far deeper than just a scoreline. Let us set the stage properly, because context is everything here. Alex Eala did not originally plan to be in Strasbourg's main draw at all. She had been listed as a qualifier for the WTA 500 event, fully expecting to grind her way through the preliminary rounds. But fate, as it so often does in sports, had other ideas. American player Hailey Baptiste withdrew from the tournament at the last minute, and suddenly Eala was handed a direct entry into the main draw as a replacement. One phone call, one lucky break, one opportunity that would turn into one of the most dramatic matches of the entire clay season. On paper, the matchup looked manageable. Her opponent was Oleksandra Oliynykova, a 25-year-old Ukrainian qualifier ranked 66th in the world at the time, 28 places below Eala, who had just climbed back into the top 40 for the first time, sitting at a career-defining number, 38, the very day before the match. All the rankings, all the momentum, all the surface advantage of being an academy-trained clay specialist, everything pointed toward Eala winning this match comfortably and heading into Roland Garros with her confidence sky high. What actually unfolded was something else entirely. The first set started beautifully for the Filipino star. Both players locked into a tight baseline battle, holding serve game after game. As the tension in the Strasbourg air thickened, the score reached 3 games apiece and neither woman was willing to give an inch. Then came the pivotal 7th game, the moment that told you exactly what kind of fighter Alex Eala has become. Oliynykova pushed her to the absolute limit, creating a breakpoint opportunity and turning the game into a brutal, exhaustive rally war. But Eala held her nerve. She escaped. She held serve in a grinding, emotionally charged game, and then she did something that surprised even the most experienced tennis analysts watching from the sidelines. She went on the attack immediately. Eala broke Oliynykova in the very next game, the 8th, and then she ran away with the set, taking it 6-3 with cleaner shot-making and increasingly decisive control during the extended rallies. The Filipina was doing exactly what she needed to do, being aggressive, dictating play, refusing to get sucked into the slow defensive grinding game that her opponent specializes in. The blueprint was working. The first set belonged to Alex Eala. Then, everything changed. Oliynykova walked to her chair at the end of that first set, and clearly had a conversation with herself that only people who have truly suffered in life know how to have. This was not just a tennis player recalibrating her tactics between sets. This was a woman who plays every single match of her career, with the emotional fuel of an entire nation burning inside her chest. She thought about her father. She thought about Kyiv. She thought about everything she has refused to be silent about. The political controversies, the moral stances, the handshakes refused, and the statements made that shook the entire tennis world. And she came back out for the second set like a completely different player. Oliynykova stormed to a 4-0 lead in the second set, before Eala even had a chance to blink. The Ukrainian was suddenly everywhere, sharper on returns, more aggressive in coverage, putting the pressure squarely back on the Filipina's service games. 2 breaks of serve, 4 consecutive games, it looked like the match was slipping away from Eala entirely. The momentum was gone, the blueprint had been torn up, and the crowd, which had been buzzing with excitement for the young Filipino star, suddenly grew quiet with concern. But here is what makes Alex Eala the player that an entire nation wakes up at midnight to watch. She does not fold. She has never folded. You can trace that character all the way back through her career. The matches she has won from impossible positions, the sets she has clawed back from the brink, the mental steel that has been forged through years of training under the greatest clay court dynasty in the sport's history. She fought back, point by point, game by game. She clawed her way back from 4 games to 0 down, eventually leveling the score at 5 games apiece. The crowd erupted. Olynikova's grip on the set seemed to be loosening, but the Ukrainian held on. She dug in with the kind of resilience that only someone who has lived through what she has lived through can access at the moments when they need it most. She took the second set 7 games to 5, forcing a deciding third set in what had already become one of the most gripping matches of the entire clay season. The decider was everything you could want and everything that broke Filipino hearts at the same time. Eala grabbed the 3 games to 2 lead in the third set and was at breakpoint, looking like she was about to seize the momentum and run to the finish line. But Olynikova's unusual and endlessly creative style of play, the kind that had puzzled Eala at various moments throughout the match, reasserted itself at exactly the right time. She broke back. The set was level at 3 games apiece, and from that moment on, Oliynykova simply would not be denied. She rattled off the final 3 games of the set with a calmness that was almost eerie, sealing one of the biggest victories of her career by a final scoreline of 3 sets to 6, 7 to 5, and 6 to 3. The match lasted 2 hours and 52 minutes, and when it was over, Oleksandra Oliynykova stood at the net with tears streaming down her face, for reasons that had almost nothing to do with tennis. "This win is very important to me because my father is in the army and defending Ukraine," she said in her on-court interview, barely holding back the emotion. "It has been almost 2 years, but now he has a vacation, and he is coming tomorrow to France. He is coming here to watch me play. Every day is so emotionally important to me. I am so happy because he will come here and he will see me for at least 1 match, hopefully more." Stop. Just stop and sit with that for a moment. Her father, who also serves as her manager, has been stationed in the Ukrainian military for nearly 2 years. He arranged a brief leave from active duty specifically to fly to Strasbourg to watch his daughter play professional tennis. And she delivered him a victory he will remember for the rest of his life. If you are not moved by that, check your pulse. But let us not lose sight of who Oliynykova is outside of the emotional headline, because this is a player who has been making waves far beyond the baseline for the entire year. Before she even hit a single ball in Strasbourg, she had already generated international controversy with a statement she posted on social media ahead of the tournament, announcing publicly that she would refuse to shake hands with fellow player Alina Potapova. The reason? Oliynykova had previously and loudly criticized Potapova for participating in a tennis exhibition in Russia that was sponsored by Gazprom, the multinational energy company widely considered to be a financial lifeline for Russia's war efforts. She called Potapova's participation direct active support for the war against Ukraine, and she refused to pretend otherwise. This was not the first time Oliynykova had drawn fire from across the tennis world. She has called out world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka for her associations with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. She has publicly criticized top-ranked players Daniil Medvedev, Mira Andreeva, and Diana Schneider for their participation in events linked to Russian funding. She previously refused a handshake with Hungarian player Anna Bondar and did not mince her words in explaining why. The comparisons she drew between those players' choices and historical atrocities were so searing, so raw, and so uncompromising that the tennis world was genuinely shaken. You can agree or disagree with her methods. You can debate whether the tennis court is the right arena for these battles. But you absolutely cannot say that Oleksandra Oliynykova does not mean every single word she says. This is not performance. This is not brand positioning. This is a young woman from a city that still wakes up to the sound of missile sirens, channeling all of that grief and fury into every single thing she does, including, and especially, every point she plays on a tennis court. And that, paradoxically, is both her greatest strength and a fascinating vulnerability that the analysts are only beginning to properly examine. Because when you carry that much fire inside you, when the emotional stakes of every match transcend the sport itself, there is a kind of freedom that comes with it. Oliynykova has spoken openly about this. After leveling the match at 1 set apiece against Eala, when the third set reached 3 games apiece and every point felt like a life-or-death situation, she told herself she could relax, because just playing that match with that intensity was already a kind of victory. And paradoxically, that mental release, that surrender to the moment, may have been exactly what unlocked the 3 straight games she needed to close out the match. Now, back to Alex Eala, because this story is not just about the player who won, it is every bit as much about the player who lost. and what this defeat means for what comes next. The Filipina was ranked 38th in the world the day of this match, the highest any player from the Philippines has ever been ranked in the history of professional women's tennis. She was trained by Rafael Nadal's own academy in Spain, built on the philosophy that suffering is not just something to be endured on a tennis court, but something to be embraced, welcomed, used as fuel. She reached the third round of the Italian Open just days before Strasbourg, falling only to world number 2 Elena Rybakina, one of the most punishing servers on the entire tour. Her clay court education has been steep, compressed, and at times brutal, but it has been undeniably real. And here's the thing that matters most heading into Roland Garros. Strasbourg was only Eala's 5th professional clay court event. Let that number sink in. 5th. While Oliynykova was bringing a career clay court win rate of 69% and 3 WTA 125 clay titles to the contest, Eala was still in the early chapters of her clay court story. Every defeat on this surface is not a setback. It is a page in the textbook she is writing in real time. And the lesson she got from nearly 3 hours against Oliynykova, the tactical chaos, the emotional unpredictability, the relentless variety of shot selection, is the kind of lesson that no practice session can replicate. She told Roland Garros officials before the clay season began that she is a much better player physically and mentally than she was last year, and that she and her team have been working incredibly hard. She said she is finding her footing and believes in the work they have put in. Those are not the words of someone playing for survival. Those are the words of someone building towards something larger than any individual result. And that is exactly what makes Roland Garros so fascinating for every Filipino tennis fan watching with their hearts in their mouths. Eala goes into the French Open direct draw as a top 5-0 player, which means she has already earned her place at the main table of the sport. She will be playing in the singles draw and in the women's doubles alongside Canadian sensation Victoria Mboko, currently ranked 9th in the world and one of the most exciting young players anywhere on the tour. The nickname the fans have given these two rising stars from the Pacific region, the Sisters, captures something real about the energy they bring to the game and the excitement they generate everywhere they compete. With a full week of individual preparation ahead of her, likely back at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Spain where the red clay is practically her backyard, Eala has been gifted something that most players in the draw would not choose but might secretly wish for. Time. Time to reset, to recalibrate, to go back over the footage of what Oliynykova did in that second and third set and build a plan for how to prevent it happening again. Because the lessons from Strasbourg are priceless. How to handle a player whose game operates on an entirely different rhythm. How to protect a lead when momentum turns. How to keep the intensity burning in the third set when the legs begin to ask questions the mind has to answer. Whoever emerges from Roland Garros with the most stories to tell, Alex Eala will be generating her share of them. She is a player who sells out stadiums across Manila, Melbourne, and Abu Dhabi. She is a player who went from number 333 in the world at the start of last year to the highest-ranked Filipina in WTA history. She is a player who, at 20 years old, is already carrying the weight of a nation's dreams with a kind of poise that players twice her age spend entire careers trying to develop. One loss in Strasbourg does not change any of that. If anything, it sharpens it. And as for Oleksandra Oliynykova, the woman who got to walk off that court knowing her father was already on a plane flying toward France, who cried the tears of someone who understands that tennis is never just tennis, she moves forward in the draw and carries with her a story that belongs to something much bigger than sport. She is one of the most remarkable figures in women's tennis right now, not despite the controversy she generates, but partly because of the honesty behind it. This was not just a first-round match at a WTA 500 warm-up tournament. This was a collision of two extraordinary stories, two completely different kinds of fire, on 600 square feet of red clay in the south of France. And it lasted 2 hours and 52 minutes that nobody in that stadium will be talking about in a hurry. Roland Garros starts on the 24th of May. The red dirt of Paris is waiting. Alex Eala will be there, sharper for having lost, hungrier for having come so close, and backed by millions of people across the Philippines who wake up in the middle of the night to watch her play and do not plan to stop anytime soon. Now it is your turn. Do you think this Strasbourg loss is actually a blessing in disguise for Eala heading into Roland Garros? And who would you put your money on to go deepest in the women's draw in Paris this year? Drop everything in the comments below. We read every single one, and we love hearing what you think. If this video gave you the full story that the mainstream media missed, hit that like button right now because it tells us you want more of this. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We cover women's tennis the way it deserves to be covered, with the drama, the depth, and the details that actually matter. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will see you in Paris.
And just globally, do you have a sense of, like, sorry, I'm not trying to give you an ego here, but like if you look at the numbers on YouTube for like the pre-tournament press conferences, how much people watch them? Yours is at